It's been a quiet few months in Riverdale. Spring slid into summer.
Season 5 of outlandish Netflix show Riverdale may have been confirmed, but like everything else right now, it's bound to get delayed because of the production shutdown brought about by the global health situation. All that's left to do for now is to take a deep dive into the last 4 seasons and find out some secrets that make Riverdale even more dreamlike. Here are some Riverdale secrets you never knew about. But first, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We will be giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's all your choice. So be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. It's really that simple. 1. The cliffhanger ending of Season 3 was an accident. Apparently, Archie, Betty, Veronica, and Jughead were all supposed to stand over the fire in the woods, all covered in blood, throwing their clothes into the blaze. The only reason they had to settle with simply throwing Jughead's beanie in there was that Cole Sprouse was too cold that night and he didn't really want to stand half naked in the woods. So he was let off the hook. Who would have guessed such an iconic cliffhanger wasn't even planned at all? Next, Vanessa Morgan received death threats. When it was announced that Vanessa Morgan would be joining the 2nd season of Riverdale as the magnetic bisexual Tony Topaz, things got a bit ugly around the fandom. Morgan herself revealed that when Bugheads got an inkling that she was out to jeopardize Betty and Jughead's blossoming romance, some of them started sending her death threats. But Vanessa said she received just as much fan mail, so it's still a win for her. Next, KJ Apa burnt his face trying to look the part of Archie. In case you didn't know, the actor who played Archie is not a natural redhead. In fact, KJ Apa had to dye his roots every 2 weeks to hide his natural deep brown. To make things match, the stylists also tried to bleach his eyebrows, but the results were gnarly. Apa's skin literally burned under the dye, so they never tried the bleach method again. Next, if not KJ, you want to know who among the cast is a natural redhead. It's none other than Madelaine Petsch, who was literally born to play Cheryl Blossom. Nope, you can't change my mind. Even though Madelaine was originally brought in to audition for the role of Betty, casting director David Rappaport already knew she was perfect for Cheryl's role. The only reason Madelaine wasn't asked to read for Blossom was because the role was still top secret at the time. Next up, Petsch is terrified of open water, which meant some of the scenes she shot were almost unbearable for her. During the first season, starting with her very first scene, Cheryl Blossom is often seen by the water. This was super tough for Madelaine, who was afraid of open bodies of water after a traumatizing event that happened when she was younger. Apparently, she was in a glass-bottomed boat that ended up breaking, and she's been freaked out by the ocean ever since. I mean, can you blame her though? It was so bad she had a panic attack before filming her first scene, but she was able to calm herself down before the camera started rolling. A true professional. Next, Madelaine was a huge Archie comics fangirl. Not even her fear of the open sea can make Madelaine reconsider being a part of Riverdale. Why? Because she grew up reading the Archie comics. That's why. I mean, how many young fangirls grow up to bag themselves a role in the TV adaptation of their favorite comic? Madelaine knows how lucky she is, especially after Reader's Digest sent her some rare vintage Cheryl Blossom's issues when she got cast for the role. Next, another fun fact about Madelaine is that she was almost named Street. Apparently, Madelaine's mom gave her dad the honors of naming her, but when he wanted to call her Street, mom had to put her foot down and look for a compromise. So, they suggested they call her Lane instead, as a shorthand for Madelaine. You know, because streets are also called lanes. Right? Close enough, Dad. Close enough. Next, Petsch and Lili Reinhart were living together when they filmed Season 1. While the entire cast of Riverdale is pretty close with each other, Madelaine and Lili take it one step further by being roommates. The two had already met even before Riverdale started filming, so it was a sensible setup for them. Next, speaking of the world being small after all, did you know that Camila Mendes and Cole Sprouse went to college together? Before taking on their Riverdale roles, Camila and Cole both studied at NYU and even had classes in the same building. Mendes remembers Sprouse from seeing him in the hallways all the time. Unfortunately, Cole said he couldn't remember her from school. Ouch. Next, Cole Sprouse argued that Jughead should be depicted as asexual. Later on in the Archie comics, Jughead was written out to be asexual. Sprouse said he wanted to honor this aspect of Jughead's story in Riverdale, but unfortunately, the showrunners appear to have different plans. Speaking to Glamour, Cole said, "I think in the show, he's not a romantic and not asexual. I argued in the beginning, creatively, that he should be both, but in the show, he's kind of a tortured youth that ends up finding a comfort and a resonance with another person who's going through a lot of trauma. They end up forming this kind of beautiful, honest union, and I think that, to me, is a narrative that works with this universe of Jughead. But I think that kind of asexual and aromantic representation is really important." Well, Netflix still has Season 5 to rethink the character because it seems only right to grant Sprouse, and aces everywhere, the representation they need. Next up, the reason why Cole Sprouse really wanted to be Jughead. Even though he was originally asked to audition for the leading role of Archie, he always wanted to be Jughead. Not because he relates to the character, oh no. This wise guy was actually thinking about his employability when he asked to read for the role. See, he found out that the series was actually being narrated by Jughead, so he thought this meant they would never kill him off and he would stay employed throughout all the seasons. Well played, Cole. We love a smart star. Next, the set of Pop's chocolate shop seemed so realistic that hungry truckers would sometimes pull over and try to dine in there. Could you imagine the disappointment of these hungry 18-wheelers upon learning that Pop's is just a set? But that's fine, they can always head to Rocco's Diner in British Columbia, a real restaurant where the Pop's used in the pilot episode was shot. Next up, there are two words that KJ Apa can't pronounce properly. In case you missed it, Archie's American accent is totally fake because KJ was born and raised in New Zealand. Even though he does a pretty good job of hiding his true accent generally, he said there are two words that always trip him up: girlfriend and burger. Next, Ashleigh Murray almost quit acting before landing the role of Josie. The sublime actress said she was already about $5,000 behind in rent and was about to take a break from acting for about a year until she could recover financially. She had decided that Riverdale would be her last audition because her bank account had just dipped to $12 at the time. Luckily, they loved her as Josie of Josie and the Pussycats. She might even get her own spin-off show. How cool is that? Next, while we're talking audition stories, did you know that Camilla's audition process was so much longer and nerve-wracking compared to the others? It took showrunners 6 months to decide they wanted her. Mendez said the producers kept on bringing in different actors to compete with her, but none of them nailed the character better than her. Not bad for someone who was once told she didn't look Latina enough for the role, right? Next, Lili Reinhart is a mental health advocate who is pretty open about her own struggle with depression. But you know what's really touching? Her tweet where she said, "Riverdale came into my life when I was going through the worst depression I'd ever experienced, and in the end, it completely saved me." Aw. Next, Lili Reinhart once sassed a Riverdale fan on Twitter. As a mental health advocate, Lili doesn't sit in silence when people try to bully or fat shame her. Once, a so-called fan of the show tagged her on Twitter and told her, "Please start being healthy. I love you, but I also can't stand to see you look so unhealthy and be happy with it. It'll outshine your talent." To which our queen, Lili, replied, "Thank you so much for being concerned about my weight. I'll respond later after I finish my double cheeseburger." Keep slaying, Betty. Next, while Betty is busy fending off fat shamers on Twitter, Archie is on Instagram openly supporting them. Fans were quick to call out KJ Apa when he liked a fat shaming comment that said, "Making fun of fat people is the only thing that's gonna stop those useless bags from dying a fat early death." Not cool, Archie. Next, there's a significance to Jughead's beanie. Cole Sprouse revealed on Reddit that even the costumes they wore on Riverdale had hidden meanings. Basically, he said that in the early days, factory workers would trim the brims off their hats or flip them inside out to keep them out of their eyes. The workers would then pass these modified hats onto their children, who would wear them with pride. He said the cap will always stand for some kind of nonconformist, working class symbol. That's so Jughead, right? Next, a little bit of trivia. In the Season 4 premiere, the photos Mary looks through are actual photos of Luke Perry, which were provided by his family. How amazing is that? Next, KJ actually broke his hand when he punched the ice. Remember the finale of Season 1 where Archie injured his hand while trying to crack open the ice to save Cheryl from drowning? Well, KJ actually broke his hand filming the scene, just as showrunner Roberto Aguirre Sacasa predicted. He literally told the crew that KJ is a method actor who stays passionate and in character, so they have to make sure he doesn't actually hurt his hand. But when Aguirre Sacasa got a phone call that KJ had indeed broken his hand, he was just like, yeah. And finally, Riverdale filmed multiple different people killing Jason, and not one of them knew who really ended up killing the guy on the final cut. This was their way to stop any leaks from spoiling the surprise. Impressive, right? And with that, we wrap up the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.